You're listening to the Fantasy Wildcard Podcast.
Yes, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty Show. And for those of you that have been counting, this is episode 200 of the Fantasy Wildcard Show. Absolutely delighted to be your host for this evening. Mags, you can see all the dumb stuff I say on Twitter over at Hot Seat Mags if you want to go check that out. And of course, I got a great co-host with me. As always, it's the best two from the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty Show. I've got the Dynasty mind, the Fantasy mind, the best mind I can think of. It's Kev, ladies and gentlemen. You can find him over at the Dynasty Mind on Twitter, where he says a lot more sensible things than me. Kev, great to see you, mate. Congratulations on episode 200.
It's congratulations to us all, is it? I mean, wow, what a milestone. And I'll be honest, like, just when the music was playing then as it was loading up, I was getting a little bit emotional, thinking, wow, we've been doing this for 4 years. So that's a big part of our lives. Obviously, we've had different co-hosts, we've had different guests over that time period. I think just a big thank you to anyone that's watched or listened, all the amazing people we've had on. Look, we're all about trying to help people win Dynasty titles. We try to be entertaining, a touch of comedy, obviously things like the Roast Show. But mainly we're trying to be authentic, genuine, good people. We're not trying to ram it down anyone's throat or sort of force you with our takes. We're just giving you information in an easy way to take it in, and then you decide what you want to do with that. So yeah, we love what we're doing. We do what we love. We've had amazing guests over the 4 years. We've got a big show tonight for 200, and we had to keep it rolling with another amazing guest. And last time he brought the house down.
Last time, yeah, 100% brought the house down. There's nobody else that we could have on here, Kev, as the guest for episode 200. Forget your ex-NFL players. Forget these guys over in America. Give me everyone's favorite fantasy weatherman. Give me Matt. Of course, you can find him at Matt F. Matt, you need to change to the Fantasy Weatherman, all right? Let's just figure that out. I can't even remember what I'm able to find. Matt FF Dynasty, is that right? He's one of the co-founders of the Fantasy Wildcards. You're a friend of mine. Matt, how you doing, mate? Good to see you.
Yeah, doing really well. Thanks, Mags. And I just said it's a monumental show. It's great that you invited me to come back on. Obviously, something that myself, Kevin, and Rich all those years ago set up, and just seeing how far we've come as a team. Obviously, I've took a bit of a step back, but the people we brought in and over the years, it's been amazing that we've managed to keep it going. Kev being there as the lead guy, he's carried it right from the beginning and still going. So it's great to be on this show as a milestone that we're in and to be a part of it. It's really great. So I appreciate you having me on. Looking forward to hopefully another 200 from you guys. And yeah, let's do it.
The best three.
I mean, yeah, I mean, Ali couldn't even join us for 200 show. What are we doing here, like Ali? I mean,
we'll do his own house.
On purpose. Yeah, exactly. That is, of course, the biggest celebration for episode 200.
It's better to happen before the show than during the show. Obviously, we know what happened with me on the roast, where, as Kev mentioned, the house fell down. So at least Ali's got a bit of a warning. He can deal with it while not being live on the show.
Yeah, if we see him join in the swimming with a snorkel on later, that'll be real commitment from Ali. So maybe we'll see him later. Who knows? You have to stick around to find out. And another reason to stick around is let's cut the crap, guys. Right? Let's make this show about how to win some Dynasty titles in 2024, right? Let's get straight to it. That's what people really, really want to do. So let's give them some advice on this. We'll give them maybe some chalky picks that we might have, and then maybe a couple of sneaky guys that might help them along the way. And Matt, we're going to pitch it to you for all these, and then me and Kev are going to bounce around and see what we think about some of your picks. So let's start with quarterback. No better place to start. Let's start with a chalk, Matt. Let's give you a layup. Who's your chalky quarterback that you think can help people win titles in 2024?
Yeah, so this is a guy that I was really looking forward to having last year, and he managed to smash me last year. So I'm going back to the bus again, going for Dak Prescott. I think he's a guy that you can get at a super good price. Currently looking at keep trade cut, quarterback 14. Fantasy Pros got him around quarterback 10. But look at what he did last year. Finishes the QB3 in fantasy points per game. I think it was QB4. So a really impressive year. And I think you can still get him at such a good value, as I say. The fact that he's going around a late QB1 in fantasy. So you're probably getting him in, what's that, at the end of the second round in Superflex drafts, maybe even the start of the third round. Being able to get somebody like that so late who can be a quarterback 1, as I said, finishes the quarterback 3 last year. Going into this year, very little has changed, has it really, for Dak Prescott? I mean, you look at the weapon he's got, CD Lamb, very little around him. There's maybe a tight end we're going to talk about a little bit later that I quite like as well from this offense. But then you look on the running side, the running game that they've got over in Dallas, and that seems to have actually got worse. So that, for me, tells me they're probably looking to throw it even more this year. As I said, Dak coming off his best fantasy season to date last year. I just think he's a smash at his current value. I know he's getting up there in age, and that's going to be a common denominator, I think, when we go for all these players. That tends to be the guys you look to target because, as we know, everybody in Dynasty, they've got a little bit of fear when it comes to aging players in fantasy football. So if you are a contending team, these tend to be the players that are the most easy to acquire because rebuilding teams are looking to get rid of these aging players. Whereas if we're contending, we're going to bring them in and help us get us that championship. So yeah, Dak Prescott for me, I think is a smash. Probably pretty chalky, as we've mentioned in this category, but I still think he's a great player to go out and get.
Yeah, I think as well, like, I just love the fact you've come on the show, made your first pick as a Cowboys player. Obviously, I'm an Eagles fan, so really appreciate that, Matt. But you're Giants, so it's taking away all that Homer bias, which Ali would have brought to the show tonight. Get well soon, Ali, with your flood and that. But look, I love the pick. Yeah, Dak Prescott is someone that's easily acquirable as your high-end QB2 in Dynasty. If you talk about getting him via trade, probably a first and a second can get it done. There was a point last season in the league, I remember, where he'd had a tough start to the season. Paul Picking at Dak Prescott, and I offered him a first and a second, and I almost got it over the line. But because Paul's a smart guy, he didn't give me any shit last night on the Rewind show, did he? But he held off, and look what happened to him that second half season. That absolutely killer spree he went on, and him and CeeDee Lamb really tore up the league. So I love the pick. I think he's the ideal, cheaper, like hammer piece at QB if you're looking to really sort of solidify that room. And yeah, pass attempts is what's going to drive his production this season. We know the rushing upside has dampened a little bit as he's got older, and he had that bad leg injury a few years back. But passing volume, passing attempts, that also creates rushing upside through the scrambling, etc. Running back room's terrible. Zeke Elliott's come back. Like, wow, what year I would play in it. Jerry Jones playing redraft. And yeah, I love the pick, Matt. Well done. Good start.
Yeah, it seems so like, I mean, it's not going to be the first time this season that we're going to be scratching our head looking at keep trade cut ranking. Let's put it that way. Let's be honest. Like when Dak Prescott is healthy, he is a quarterback 1. Every single season he's been healthy, he has finished as a quarterback 1. So having him ranked at a quarterback 14, I don't get it. I don't understand. So yeah, Matt, I'm right with you there. The value is right there for Dak Prescott. I've sort of described him before as like the ultimate quarterback 2. Right, he is the best player that you can realistically get as your like second quarterback in a team. But finishing as that quarterback 3 last year, and he's had those high-end finishes before in his career, he's a very, very serviceable quarterback 1 as well. And if he finishes up near quarterback 3 again, yeah, you got to start talking about Dak as one of the elite guys, actually, as a quarterback 1. So he's got the weapons around him. I think he can do it. So great pick, Matt. Now let's talk about one that's maybe going to raise some more eyebrows because it's a deeper pick. It's one that people maybe wouldn't have thought of. I got to be honest, Matt, not one I thought of. Who you got?
Yeah, so the deep. I mean, this was tough because going deep on quarterback, this is where it becomes risky. We've seen it time and time again. When you start digging for these low end quarterbacks, it's not very often they hit. But this is a guy that I actually think could have a really good year this year. It's Geno Smith, so the quarterback for the Seahawks. Keep Trade got him around QB 28, Fantasy Pros QB 24. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I'm actually quite in on Geno Smith this year. The first one being, obviously, there's been a big change over at the coaching staff there, new head coach Mike McDonald, and they brought in the new offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb. And this is the key part of the offense that's been added that's really getting me a little bit more excited for the Seahawks offense. We know from years gone by with Pete Carroll, this has been a run-heavy team, a lot of running the ball with then throwing the pass a bit like second really over in the ball. Whereas now there's been a bit of a change to the head coach. I know Mike McDonald, he's more of a defensive coach, but bringing in Ryan Grubb, as I said, he's coming over from Washington, the college football team, the Huskies. And they was an amazing offense last year when it came to passing the ball. Over his 2 years that he spent at Washington, they ranked 6th in yards per game, 6th in scoring in the SFB over those 2 years. And also was a former quarterback coach over with Washington as well. All those things to me, I think that's a real good sign for Geno Smith. As I said, be the quarterback there. We've seen what he did over at Washington with Michael Penix as well. This is a guy who took 4 years in college football, didn't show too much, transfers over to Washington, getting that offensive coordinator in Ryan Grubb. And look what he's done. He's managed to go 8th overall in the NFL draft as an aging quarterback as well, coming in as a rookie. So all these things point towards Geno Smith. I think he could have a great year. Being a little bit disrespected with that low ranking. Obviously, we know he's getting up there in age. Is he 33, I believe? I'm going to turn 34 during the year. So it's not like we've got a lot of tread on the tyres. But I think if you're looking for a QB2, like if you're struggling for a QB2, so if you've only got one on your roster, you're looking to go and grab someone. Geno Smith, I think you could easily get him for a second round pick from a team that's maybe looking to rebuild, because they're going to want to get him off their hands as soon as possible, as I say, because he is aging. So for me, he's a real great target as if you're in desperate need of a QB2, or if you can get him as your QB3, then I think you're getting great value there, getting him at such a cheap value.
Yeah, I like this, Matt. I think, first of all, him as your QB3, perfect. He's got that potential to give you QB2 production. He's finished borderline QB1 previously. When I think of this selection, it got me thinking about who has a similar range of outcomes, who has a similar sort of timeline as Geno Smith in terms of, I think Geno's probably got this season and then it's kind of up in the air, not particularly through performance related, but just feel that if the Seahawks are going to contend and actually push for a Super Bowl, they probably need something better than Geno Smith. So I think he's a great placeholder. And it got me thinking about Will Levis, a guy that's in an offense that's got a ton of weapons, a new offensive system, a new head coach. And Will Levis is going QB 22. Now, people obviously got him above Geno because he's younger. But I think both have probably got this season to decide. So you get in what Geno Smith, 7 or 8 spots at QB lower than what Will Levis is, but there's other guys going around Will Levis's range as well at 1 year. I see as 1 year people where you've got to make that decision. Bo Nix, I think's one. I think Bryce Young's one. Then you've got your other older guys. Can Kirk Cousins outlast and not get injured? Matt Stafford's year to year. So I think with Geno, it's like give me a shot against those guys at a lot cheaper value. And you got to think as a contender, you don't really want to spend that first. Like, you want to keep it in your back pocket for something for the right deal. So if you don't have to spend it, you don't have to force anything. I think, you'd be able to get Geno for probably a second and a third, a second in some scenarios. So again, I like the pick, Matt. You've made 2 good picks. I don't know what's changed.
I absolutely love that Ryan Grubb is there. I think that's a really good appointment that they've made from Washington, especially if you think like he's just come from a system that had Jalen McMillan and Jalen Polk in there, and of course Rome Odunze, and now he's got a system with 3 players that you can kind of see, McMillan at the slot, JSN can go into there. You had Tyler Lockett now, who's a pair of safe hands, just like Jalen Polk was whenever he was over at Washington. And then, of course, Rome Odunze and DK Metcalf, although they're not, hugely similar players. I think Odunze is probably a lot more polished than Metcalf. You can kind of see where you think the offense is going to go there. My only issue with this Geno Smith pick is I think Sam Howell is just close enough to Geno Smith that there's a chance he could take his job. If there was less competition there, I would be absolutely all over it. I would love it. But I think if Geno slips up even once, I think they're going to give Sam Howell a shot. And then Sam Howell will probably slip up and Geno will be back in, But, that would be the only thing that would be pulling me back. And I suppose that's why Geno is so far down there, because people are a bit skeptical about, will Sam Howell come in and take that job? But I love that situation for any quarterback coming in. And Geno Smith is the guy for now. So I think it's definitely worth a punt at, quarterback 24 to 28. I think that's definitely worth it. So I do like the pick, Matt, for sure. And I know somebody's going to like your next pick because we're going to the running back position. And because it's episode 200, you did a chalky one just for Kev, right?
Well, yeah, it's a love-hate pick for me, this one, because if you've been watching the show over these 200 shows when I've been on, you know that I'm a massive Giants fan. I try to keep my bias out of it. I tend not to like many players from the Giants, to be honest, when it comes to fantasy football. But the one player I actually liked from the Giants of fantasy football, he's decided to leave me. And not just leave the Giants, gone to the biggest rivals possible. So it's obviously Saquon Barkley leaving my Giants, going to Kev's Eagles. Yeah, it's a love-hate bit because I absolutely love Saquon Barkley, but I hate the fact that he's gone to the Eagles. But fantasy football, I do actually quite like the move to the Eagles, to be honest. We saw what happened last year with DeAndre Swift over there with the Eagles. The improvement in O-line is such a big thing for running backs when it comes to running back position. If you're behind a good O-line, you tend to have a pretty good shot at being successful in fantasy football. Saquon Barkley, with the talent he's got, going over to the Eagles, I know that they've lost Jason Kelce, so that is a bit of a knock when it comes to the O-line, but I still think it's going to be a top O-line. You've got Jalen Hurts there, who there's going to be a lot of talk about him stealing the goal line touches, but when you look at actually DeAndre Swift and the opportunities he actually had at the goal line, I think he ranked around 14th in attempts around the goal line in the 5 yard around the 5 yard line. So it's not like that he wasn't getting opportunities. It's just that there's a lot of opportunities to go around. So Jalen Hurts is going to get his, but I think Saquon Barkley is equally going to get his as well. The other knock is obviously the receiving. You tend to find that you don't really get many passes from Jalen Hurts when you're the running back for the Eagles. But again, I think with the talent that Saquon Barkley's got, with the slight changes to this offensive line, there could be a slight change to either maybe the tush push is gone now. I mean, how big a part did Jason Kelce play in that tush push? We don't yet know. We're going to find out in just a few days' time when the NFL kicks off. But I do think that Saquon Barkley is in a great situation with the Eagles, which pains me to say. But as I said, the talent there is incredible. You know my love for Saquon Barkley. I'm looking forward to seeing him have that bounce back. We know how efficient he can be running the ball, as I said, as a receiving threat as well. And again, little competition behind him when it comes to Eagles. Obviously, they brought in Will Shipley. They've got Kenny Gainwell there. Two good running backs. But I mean, neither of those are guys that you're going to be too scared about when it comes to Saquon Barkley. The only thing really holding him back is the injury worry. But I think he's proven over the last couple of years that those injuries are more freak injuries rather than him being injury prone. So yeah, it pains me to say it, but at the same time, I love being able to talk in glowing terms about Saquon Barkley for a change, rather than being stuck on my crappy Giants and not being able to reach the potential we know that he's got. So yeah, Saquon Barkley for me. Running back 9, keep Trey Cut. Running back 4 on Fantasy Pro, so a little higher than what I'd have expected. But either way, I think he's still going to be a top running back in fantasy this year.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, first of all, when you came to talk about Saquon, I thought you were going to say I love Saquon, I hate Kev, which is probably true. But,
that's what I wanted to say, but I didn't.
We're playing nice tonight, episode 200, aren't we? Yeah, look, I think great from a real life perspective. Fantasy wise, look, the redraft community, I mean, they've got him running back 4 in ADP, running back 9 in Dynasty. He's 27 years old, which is why obviously he's a little bit lower in Dynasty. But like I say, he's missed a few of these big parts of seasons through freak injuries, and not anything that you can sort of say, oh, it's wear and tear. It's just unfortunate, like slips and stuff like that. So he's a younger 27 than some running backs. There is concerns in his profile. Yeah, obviously you mentioned the touch push and the receiving work, but what is the running back landscape nowadays? This is a guy who's one of the best rushers we've had in the last 10 years, purely in terms of talent. Someone that is getting paid a good whack at running back. There's got to be a plan to use him in the pass game, despite it obviously being sort of filtering through AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. I love the pick. I think when people think about who could finish running back 1, I personally don't think Saquon can. I think it's Hall, Bijan, CMC. But Saquon's fourth for me and is a hell of a lot cheaper than those guys based on age. I think you could probably do some sort of interesting deal. Like, imagine if you've got a Jonathan Brooks and you get to mid-season, you think, actually, Brooks hasn't done it for these 4 games or so he's played. A lot of people won't want to make that pivot from Brooks to Barkley because they're losing 6 years. But it's something to consider because you want to win titles. At the end of the day, it's no point having these young players that aren't going to get you over the edge, like just pushing it back year upon year upon year. So just be really open with what you foresee and what you could do. It works your way, obviously. The simple one is if you've got an aging vet and you're rebuilding, you move him on for rookies, but you can do it the other way as well. So Saquon would be someone I'd be targeting. And plus, if you get to mid-season, you've kind of got an idea of what he's going to look like with the Eagles. Is he getting that work, etc. Got to think as well, he had this success in New York. No disrespect to them, but Philadelphia's offense is going to have a hell of a lot more opportunities. There's more people to pass it, to spread it around. But Saquon's going to get his as well. So it's a really exciting time to be an Eagles fan. I mean, to talk about Saquon Barkley.
Love that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we called it chalky for a reason. This is, for me, zero argument against Saquon Barkley on the Eagles. It just, everywhere you look, you just think, yep. Even if they give him the same kind of workload DeAndre Swift had last year, you just expect Saquon Barkley to do so much more with that than DeAndre Swift, who, isn't a terrible running back, but Saquon Barkley is an absolute elite top-tier running back. So I expect him to come in and outproduce that running back 9 that he's on keep trade cut and probably finish around that Fantasy Pros running back 4. I think you're right, Kev. It'll be really tricky for him to overtake someone like a Christian McCaffrey in particular. Bijan and Hall, he might get a bit closer to. I just don't think he's sniffing Christian McCaffrey this year. Just I think he'll be so far ahead of everybody else. But I wouldn't be shocked if Saquon could sneak up into that 3 or even 2 area. I just think it's a match made in heaven. So I love that pick, Matt, for sure. With Saquon Barkley, as much as it might have hurt you to do so. So we'll move on from Saquon and onto a deeper stash at running back. I love this one. Just seeing the value on it, Matt. I think you're onto a winner here.
I'm glad you said that, Max, because to be honest, I was struggling thinking, like, how deep do I go? Do I go for like Alvin Kamara, somebody that's a little bit lower down in the Dynasty rankings, but we know that he's a stud. So I thought I've got to go a little bit deeper than that. I can't go too easy. So I've actually gone for Zach Moss, the running back now over with the Cincinnati Bengals. And this is another really interesting one for me. Now, we know Joe Mixon, the success that he had over with the Bengals. He's now gone. He's gone over to the Texans. They brought in Zach Moss on a 2-year contract. And you look at where he's currently ranked on Keep Trade Cut, going around RB 37. Fantasy Pros got him at RB 32. And for me, this is a really interesting situation because I think his value has been suppressed because the backfield to a lot is a bit confusing because Chase Brown's there. We saw he had that one big play last year and everyone thought, oh, Chase Brown's going to now dethrone Joe Mixon. He's going to be the guy that's going to be the thorn in the side of Joe Mixon. And they didn't really do that much, to be honest, for the rest of the year. And I feel like we're going to get similar things this year when it comes to Zach Moss and Chase Brown. Now, obviously, Zach Moss not to the levels of Joe Mixon in terms of the talent, but the opportunity that is on going to the Bengals. And let's not forget the Bengals last year, they really struggled. Obviously, Joe Burrow went down. The whole season went a bit tits up and it became a bit of a mess in terms of what they were doing for the rest of the year. Now, I think with Joe Burrow back, hopefully with Jamar Chase back, obviously that's still a bit up at the air as the time we're recording this. Maybe it's all been confirmed. He's finally got his contract by the time this is put out. But I think when he's back, they've obviously kept T. Higgins for another year, bringing in guys like Jermaine Burton as well as a receiver. They're really elevating this offense, and I think this is going to turn around this year for the Bengals. And to me, that's kind of a good thing for when it comes to running backs. There's going to be a lot of times where they're hopefully icing out the game, looking to lean on the running game. And for me, if they're going to do that, there's only one player they're going to lean on, that's Zach Moss. I don't think that's a Chase Brown kind of role. I think he's going to be more in terms of we're down and we need to get some points. He's the more of an explosive running back. But I think in terms of touches, goal line touches, I think all that's going to be more Zach Moss's game. And I think it's not going to be a case of a 1A, 1B. I actually think Zach Moss is the starter. Chase Brown's going to be more of a guy that's going to come in, give a little break to Zach Moss here and there, spell him a little bit. But I don't think it's going to be a case of a 50-50 split between these two. I think Zach Moss is going to get the most of the touches and probably the more valuable touches. And let's not forget, he can be used in the receiving game as well. We saw that he managed to handle a 3-down role last year when he was over at the Colts, when Jonathan Taylor obviously missed those games to start the year, and he looks really good in that offense. So hopefully in a similar situation with the Bengals on a stronger offense, he can continue that and again look really good. So I think he's a great player to go out and target if maybe you've not got too many picks, or as I say, maybe only got a second round pick and you need to throw that out there to get a little bit more depth at running back. I think Zach Moss is a great player to target. But I will just add as well, I think when it comes to contending teams, if you are okay at running back, I'd wait as long as you dare possibly want to wait until you go and acquire a running back, because so much can change. I mean, you could grab Zach Moss now, he could go down injured in 2 weeks' time, and then you're out of the picture again in terms of being a contender. So for me, I do tend to like to wait on these deeper guys as long as possible. The closer I can get to the fantasy playoffs, that's when I start targeting any running backs that I need. But as I say, at this moment in time, I think he's a great player to target at such a cheap value.
Yeah, I'm conflicted on this one because I like Zach Moss. I like Chase Brown. I think they're both values. The sensible thing is to take a bit of both, because I can tell myself a story that this one's going to be the one that breaks out, or this one's going to be the one that breaks out. So if you're a psychopath and playing 30-plus leagues like myself, then you could get a bit of both. Like, there's no point hedging your bets and taking, I don't know, 6 shares of Zach Moss and none of Chase Brown, or vice versa, and then being wrong in 6 leagues. So yeah, I think there's definitely potential. I think early down work, touchdown work opportunities, some sort of passing opportunities from your neutral game script. That's Zach Moss for me. Chase Brown's not been excellent in preseason. There's been some cups of him missing holes or bouncing outside when he shouldn't. So I think Moss is going to get an opportunity, and that's all you really want as someone that, if he gives you 80% of what Joe Mixon gives you from the last few years, that's perfect for what you're paying for him, the cost to acquire. You're easily getting Zach Moss, I think, for a second, or some sort of deal where it's a player in a third or something along those lines. I think it's interesting what you said about running back strategy, about when to trade for these guys. I do think you can do later season trades for running backs that break out, because, like you say, it's a volatile position. Injuries come up all the time. If you get someone in let's say you trade from week 4, you've then got to hold them through the season, play them, which is great. You're getting the fantasy points of production. You've got to then get to week 14, 15, 16, 17 to win that ship. I think the good thing is running backs do come available through the waiver wire. So I would think, in my head thinking, first thing I want to do as a contender is finish in the top 2. So if I'm like the 4th best team and I'm short running back, I want to get that now, like early on in the season, to really push myself, because if I finish 6th, that's another game I've got to win the coin flip in the playoffs. So just think about your dynasty builds. Where's your team at? Understand, are you 1st, 2nd, are you the 5th or 6th projected seed? And then take it from there, running back. But yeah, back to Moss. I think it's another great shout. But I would diversify between Moss and Brown if you're in a lot of leagues.
Before we move on, can I just add one more thing on that? Like, because we're just talking about the strategy of targeting running backs as well. I think the other reason why I quite like going for running backs more in the middle of the season is when you get into that stage, maybe 6 games in, something like that, you kind of know if you're going to make it or not in terms of pushing for the playoffs or not. What's the one position that is the easiest to acquire off a rebuilding team? Everybody knows that rebuilding teams, they want to get shut of the running backs as quick as possible because it is such a volatile position. So I just find it a lot easier to go out and grab these running backs mid-season from those kinds of teams. Obviously, what they've got, you don't know. If they're rebuilding, it tends to they've not got a great team. But you do get the odd occasion where they've got a strong running back, and that's going to be the one player they're going to want to shift straight off, because we just know rebuilding teams, they don't like to hang on to running backs because, as you mentioned, Kev, it's such a volatile position. So just throwing that out there, that's another reason why I tend to go for that kind of strategy of don't panic too much at the start of the year. If you've only got 3 running backs, 4 running backs, I wouldn't worry too much, because I think that's the easiest position to acquire in the middle of the season from a rebuilding team.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on with that strategy. And like I said at the start, man, I think you're spot on with this pick as well. For me, it just comes down to Chase Brown. Have we seen him do it properly? Not really. Chase Brown has as many games with negative fantasy points as he does with over 10. So that kind of shows you like where Chase Brown is in my kind of regards, where Zach Moss, we mentioned earlier, came in, did a really good job while Jonathan Taylor was down, to the point where it's actually a little bit annoying for some Jonathan Taylor's owners that the fact that Zach Moss just didn't go away immediately because he was doing such a good job. So I just think it's cut and dry. I think Zach Moss is the guy there, especially the closer you get to the goal line. I'm not trusting Chase Brown, who's yet to score a touchdown in the NFL by rushing. I'm not trusting him. Zach Moss seems to have more in his wheelhouse for that kind of play. And of course, if you're playing for the Bengals, you can't really stack the box too much because, you've got Jamar Chase, you got Joe Burrow, you got all that receiving threat, T. Higgins, don't forget Mike Gesicki, my goodness. Don't forget all those guys, right? So you can't stack the box too much. I think Zach Brown's in for a real solid season, definitely going to be outproducing that running back 37 that he is on keep trade cut. So I love that, Matt. And let's move on to wide receiver. You got a chalky one for us. Hey, you got a little shout out earlier in the show as well, if people were listening.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a bit of a common theme here when you look at the quarterbacks I pick. There tends to be a player that goes along with those because there's obviously a reason why I like those quarterbacks and in turn the players that play with them. So for me, the chalky wide receiver, it's DK Metcalf, currently wide receiver 19, both on Keep Trade Cut and Fantasy Pros for this upcoming season. Kind of spoke a little bit why I like this Seahawks offense and why I think it can take a jump forward this year. And in turn, I think if Geno Smith does take that step forward with the new coaching staff over there, as we mentioned with Ryan Grubb coming over, we spoke a little bit about what Rome Odunze did over in college football and the other wide receivers at Washington. I feel like this is going to be a great thing for these wide receivers in this offense. DK Metcalf, we know that he's the alpha in this offense. He's the big go up and get it kind of guy, but he's also got a lot of speed behind him as well. He's just an absolute freak. So I love DK Metcalf, and I think the value that he's currently going at in both in redraft and in Dynasty is great value because that's kind of his floor. I feel like wide receiver 19 has kind of been doing that the last few years, pushing up to a low end wide receiver 1, but he tends to hang around that wide receiver 19, 18, 17 range. But as I say, I think with the hopeful improvements to this offense, if Geno Smith can get back to that kind of form that we saw from 2 years ago, as I say, with the coaching staff coming in, I think DK Metcalf's going to be one of the big beneficiaries of this change in coaching staff. We know as well, obviously JSN's going to get a lot of hype this year. Had a bit of a disappointing rookie season. I do think that he takes a step forward this year, but Tyler Lockett is a guy that he keeps hanging around, but I feel like the decline is slowly coming. We see it, it's starting to come now. So I think if he does slowly start to drop off, I think again DK Metcalf's going to be a guy that's going to benefit from that. So I'm pretty confident that he's going to be a high end wide receiver too. So the fact that you can get him at wide receiver 19, again, he's another player that I'd love to target. Still only, is 26 years old, so still plenty of years left in him yet, and he's going to be one of these guys that's going to stick around and be a great fantasy producer for you. So DK Metcalf, again, I think is a good value at wide receiver 19, and I definitely think there's more to his game than just that kind of low-end wide receiver 2 range that you can get him at.
Yeah, I mean, you've come on the show, you've spoke about Geno Smith, Seahawks player, spoke about DK Metcalf, Seahawks player, spoke about Washington. I think Jordan Merritt might have you held off.
I mean,
I just need to know what your safe word is. Like,
hopefully Jordan will let me out of this basement.
I know.
If I can't say enough nice things.
Yeah, hopefully it's better built than that wall that fell down. But yeah, like DK Metcalf. First of all, disclaimer: I've not got him in any Dynasty league.
I know you're not a fan, Kev. I know you're not a fan.
Me neither. That's so weird. I don't have a single share either, by the way.
And I think that's more to do with historically the fact that I think there's been more hype than substance. Where he's been going a couple of years back, it's a different price point to what he's going now. But there is things in his favour because you've got to be open to your biases and your what you want in a wide receiver, etc. It's a new offense. You've got obviously everything you spoke about with Ryan Grubb and the Washington background and this sort of it feels like a phasing out of Tyler Lockett. I know that JSN was played in 2 wide receiver sets through training camp pre-season. I think that's a good thing for the offense because you've got Tyler Lockett, who's been a proven performer in fantasy, and then you've got JSN coming in, who's unproven. That to me is a plus for DK Metcalf. I can't see JSN having a wide receiver 13-14 season, which Tyler Lockett has done in the past, albeit boom bust in that nature. And then you've also got the fact that DK Metcalf, we see him as a boom bust player as well. But last season, go look at his game logs. Mm-hmm. He was so consistent in a tough situation. I think he has flashed in the past of these epic seasons where, he plays on the outside, so he's volatile. His catch percentage is low, but he's getting 16, 17, 18 yards of reception. He's getting potentially double-digit touchdowns. If there's someone in a range where he's going who could, in a best-case scenario, have a top 5 wide receiver season, DK Metcalf's got that in his wheelhouse. I think the fact that it's a tough division as well, from some really strong offenses, it is a positive. Because they're going to have to pass more. There might be a certain way they want to play, but I would imagine they're doing a lot of 11 personnel with that Washington background. See, it sounds like Jordan's got me hostage now. I've said Washington a few times. It's a pick that begrudgingly I can get on board with despite not having any Metcalf myself. And he's someone that in a best case, which you think about winning ships in a best case, why can't he be wide receiver 5, 6, 7?
Yeah, I said it. I'm kind of the same as you. I don't have any DK Metcalf, and I think that is, you're right. Historically, didn't love the price of him, but now he's all the way down, ranked at wide receiver 19, was it? Yeah, wide receiver 19. That's sort of the low end for DK Metcalf. If he says on the field the whole time, he's kind of finishing there at the very worst. He's sort of a high end wide receiver 2 a lot of the time. I think he snuck into the top 10 one of the years as well, maybe even top 5 for 1 year in his career. So I think DK is definitely worth it at that price. And if just keep heaping the praise onto this Washington team as well, if Metcalf has used anything like Rome Odunze was, which seems the obvious fit for me, that is just so good for Metcalf, because you could tell that's where Penix was looking for. And that is obviously all comes from Grubb as well. So if DK is that Rome Odunze read, that is huge for DK Metcalf's career, I think, in this year. I don't think he's quite a route runner as Rome Odunze, but that could be worked on as well. These guys are still, young guys. They can get better at certain things, and I would like to think that Grubb can improve DK Metcalf on his route running and get a little bit better with that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do there with DK, because I feel like there's more with him, right? You look at him and you think, wow, like this guy is like, draw an NFL athlete, you draw DK Metcalf, right? Sexy. And I think there's, exactly. And there's just so much more, I think, to come out of him. I think Grubb might be the guy to do it. So I'm excited for DK Metcalf. Love the pick, Matt. And let's go on to a bit more murkier waters, diving deep into the rankings. And wow, you went real deep. You're down by the Titanic. Tell us a little bit about your sunken wide receiver.
Again, I didn't know how deep you wanted me to go. I could have easily thrown out a Devontae Adams, a Mike Evans, these guys that go around wide receiver 30 in Dynasty, but I've gone real deep. I've gone for a guy that you could probably get as a throw-in in part of a deal, to be honest. He's that cheap. But Courtland Sutton, to me, is again, a great value in Dynasty. Keep trade Cook, I'm at wide receiver 55. So, this is a throw material pretty much. But Fantasy Pros, look at there, wide receiver 46 already. You can see a little bit of discrepancy in terms of his redraft ranking compared to where he's going in Dynasty. Obviously, age is playing a factor in that, as he's 28, 29 now. But again, Courtland Sutton, I think, as we mentioned, because the value is so low, there's obviously going to be a few question marks surrounding this Courtland Sutton and what he can do. We know he's now got a rookie quarterback. Kev's already spoke about Bo Nix and the uncertainty around there. Who knows? Is he going to be any good? Is he not? None of us really liked him too much as a prospect, so there's question marks there. But Courtland Sutton is pretty much the last man standing in this Denver offense. They've got rid of Jerry Jeudy now, a guy that was seeing enough targets given that he's such a good route runner. But Courtland Sutton, he's already proven himself to be a pretty good wide receiver. Now, I know the last few years have been pretty rough. Last year finished as a wide receiver 35, but already you look at that, wide receiver 35 in an offense that really struggled last year, yet we can get him at wide receiver 55 in Dynasty. He had his lowest targets, he had his lowest receiving yards since his rookie season last year. So again, that's pointing to me that there is room for him to improve on this. And the fact that he finished wide receiver 35, I know that's not going to win you any leagues, but at the same time, that's somebody that you can easily slide into your flex spot. And when it gets later on in the season, when there's bye weeks, when injuries start coming around, someone like Courtland Sutton can be a lifesaver to your roster, just being able to put him into the flex spot. And if you can maybe have a good week, get you a low end wide receiver 2 number, I mean, that's pretty good from a flex spot for me. So, as I say, not somebody that I'm going to go crazy on, but I mean, I don't mind getting him if I can get him as part of a throw-in in a trade, or if I can get him super cheap in a deal. He's definitely somebody that I'd like to build my depth at wide receiver with. As I said, I think last year, a down season in terms of the offense and what they were doing. This year, uncertainty with the quarterback, but as I say, pretty much the last man standing when it comes to who Bo Nix can throw the ball to. And I think he's going to be a great fit for Bo Nix as somebody, a big receiving target, somebody that he can use as an outlet. So Courtland Sutton, my deep wide receiver pick. But yeah, I like the value.
Yeah, we know Jordan Mate likes massive receivers on the outside. So again, it's another one of them guys, like unbelievable stuff. Yeah, I think you've gone deep. You've put your snork on. You've put a peg on your nose, and then you put your snork on with Courtland Sutton. It's a gross pick, but like, look, let's just be honest. There's a clear pathway to a ton of volume in that offense. You look at the room around him. I was a Troy Franklin fan.
The curse strikes again, Ken.
Curse strikes again. God, yeah, just when it gets to me on wide receiver, just ignore. I like Malik Neighbours. Yeah, can't with that. If I can, it's a Giants player. But yeah, Courtland Sutton. Yeah, Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims. He's got a lot to prove. Devon Vale or Vele, whatever you call him. Yeah, he just has to be on the field to take that volume. I think you made a good point about Sutton might not be your bona fide starter, but he's someone that's flex, bye week worthy, definitely lineups in deep leagues. And that is really important if you're going to be a contending side to win chips. Like I said, it's about finishing top 2 bye weeks. Let's say he's your bench wide receiver. He's coming into your lineup for 5-6 weeks this season, guaranteed to cover bye weeks because he's going to be the first off your bench. So he's like the under the radar, dirty pick to sort of doing the hard grafting, which you don't see. I think the only concern I would have, despite the offense, is if he gets traded mid-season. I think like if he does move to another team, it's going to be a better passing environment, you'd like to think, than the worst passing offense in the NFL. But it's just what target share could he command on an actual good team. But we're not in the game of predicting like what an actual NFL team's going to do in season. We're not that smart. We're not that stupid either. So I like the pick. It's gross, but sometimes you've got to do things you don't like for the better outcome.
Yeah, I like that you sort of picked out the only thing that you think might hold him back is getting traded. I think the only thing that might hold him back is that he's not very good at football. That might really that might hold Courtland Sutton back a little bit. The issue with him being last man standing is he's probably going to see the number one cover on the opposition. I just don't think he's good enough to get open and to do much with that. But I mean, if you're desperate, you kind of said he might be a lifesaver in the same way that, you know, someone starving with a shellfish allergy might eat some lobster. Like, it's the kind of lifesaver I think Courtland Sutton might end up being. I've never liked Courtland Sutton, though. I think I am a hater, man. I think you're right. Certain players I'm just like, nah, I don't see it. I don't like the guy. I've got 0 shares of Courtland Sutton as well. Maybe he does get some targets, but because he's sort of that big outside guy, and then he's a number one read, I just think he ends up going up against your Sauce Gardners, your other top corners. I just don't see where he wins. I don't know. I don't even know. I don't know what the hell Denver are going to do, guys. I'm not even going to lie. I can't see anyone winning. So I suppose someone has to, right? So why not pick the guy that is technically the number one guy and at wide receiver 55? He might even be on some waivers at this stage. So why not just pick him up? Why the hell not, right?
We need the Michael Thomas, big slot wide receiver.
Yeah.
Keep him out of the way.
It's going to be my boy Greg Dulcich, by the way, just for your information. Greg Dulcich is going to come in there and sweep up in there with his lovely haircut. Yeah. Right, so let's move on from wide receiver into my favorite position. It's the tight ends, and Matt, also your favorite position as well. So let's start off with the chalk. Let's go back to something that's worked for a couple of years in a row now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a play for me that is probably going to be the one player that I'm targeting the most when it comes to looking for a tight end. Jake Ferguson, the tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. Again, it pains me that I'm having to talk about a team that's not my Giants. It's the rivals. But again, Jake Ferguson, I spoke a little bit earlier about Dak Prescott. You tend to see, there's a quarterback I like. There's usually a player as well that I like that's catching the ball from them. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb is an amazing wide receiver, but beyond CeeDee Lamb, there's very little in this offense. We saw that last year, and the next guy up was Jake Ferguson. Finished as the tight end 9. I think his current rankings tight end 10 on Keep Trade Cut, tight end 9 on Fantasy Pros. Finished last year as a tight end 9, but for me, that was a year of what could have been for Jake Ferguson, because we know when it comes to tight ends, the one thing that you love to see tight ends doing is getting involved with the touchdowns. Now, we know it's hard to predict touchdowns, but Jake Ferguson, 23 red zone targets he had last year, which was first amongst tight end. It was 5th in the NFL across all players in terms of targets in the red zone. But yeah, you can only get 5 touchdowns from that. And they were all the touchdowns that he's got throughout the year. They were all in the red zone. So for me, it was kind of a what could have been season. If you could have seen more receptions that turned into touchdowns, we could have been talking about a whole different season for Jake Ferguson last year. As I mentioned, he is going to be the number 2 option on this offense. I know Brandon Cooks is there. He's shown over the years that he can be capable, but again, another player that's getting up there in age. And I just think Jake Ferguson, that short yardage guy, we know that Dak Prescott, he's not afraid to target his tight end as well. So Jake Ferguson, for me, a great target when it comes to tight ends, because the two things we love are volume and touchdowns. And I feel like Jake Ferguson has got a great shot at both of those. And with that, the price point you're getting him at tight end 10, tight end 9 in redraft, I would be shocked if he don't beat that. And to be honest, I think he could be pushing for a top 5 tight end, maybe. I think we could be getting up to that kind of range if, as we spoke about with Dak Prescott, if this is an offense that, again, has got to throw the ball plenty. We mentioned about the running back situation over with the Cowboys. I think he's a smash at that price point, and I think he's going to have a great year this year. So, as I said, somebody that I'm definitely targeting if I'm a contending team. Even if I'm not, to be honest, I'm not afraid to go and get Jake Ferguson, because he's not too old either. Only been around the NFL for a few years, so plenty of tread on the tires as well. So Jake Ferguson, yeah, love him. A guy that I've been voicing plenty on Twitter, somebody that I like this year. So yeah, give me that value again. I think he's going to smash.
2 Cowboys, eh?
It pains me.
2 Cowboys. It gets me thinking of Paul Arthur and Louis Fiends. For the UK fans out there, but look, yeah, Jake Ferguson, he's someone that I've been vocal for as well recently. Like, I'm getting on board, and proof's in the pudding. I was in my home league redraft a couple of weeks back, and on the board was Njoku and Ferguson, and in the end, I didn't have to make that decision. But in the lead up to Njoku going before Ferguson, I wasn't sure which way to go. And anybody that's listened to Dynasty show over the years will know David Njoku is my boy. So look, I think there's big value in Ferguson. He's easily acquirable as well because he's tight end 10. It's a changing landscape. Do I think the talent's great for Ferguson? No. I think it's very situation dependent, like Dalton Schultz was in Dallas. But I also think, yeah, second in targets on the Cowboys, a team that I think will pass heavy again from reasons you mentioned on Dak. And he can finish top 5. Of course he can. He had 3 touchdowns in that playoff loss, which we have to take with a pinch of salt. There was about 60 plus passes from Dak in that game. But like you say, touchdowns, it can be lucky year to year. So yeah, if he gets 8 instead of 5, he's going to be pushing top 5 last season. Why can't he do it this season? Can CeeDee Lamb have a historic season again? Probably. He's got lots of talent. But it's difficult because they always say wide receiver 1, they don't go back to back. So yeah, I think Jake Ferguson's a great pick. 2 Cowboys who I've agreed with on both. And you've told a story that you like one because of the other. So yeah, well done, Matt.
Yeah, I really like this pick as well. I think tight end 9 is probably the absolute sort of floor for Ferguson here, because if you go beyond Ferguson, just looking at the rankings on Fantasy Pros or anywhere else, you'll see guys like Dallas Goedert appearing there, like Cole Kmet appearing there, just like guys that don't have that same pathway to getting the targets that Jake Ferguson is going to get. They can't throw the ball to CeeDee Lamb every single down. Like, he's going to have to throw to somebody else, and Jake Ferguson's going to be that guy. I think coming off a really good season last year, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't build upon that and start using him as that sort of nailed on second read. And I know people are already covering CeeDee Lamb, but especially after last year, people are going to make it like a bone to pick that CeeDee Lamb's not going to torch them again for a second year in a row. So I think Jake Ferguson might get a little bit more, leeway with the coverage there. So I really like Ferguson. I think the lowest he'll finish is tight end 9. So picking him up at tight end 9, nothing but going up there. At the very worst, you're getting the perfect value for him that you drafted. So I think that's a really, really good pick. But I gotta tell you, Matt, I love this next one even more. This is so much fun. Talk to me about the deep sleeper, tight end, quarterback, running back. What the hell is he? I don't know.
I mean, that's how deep of a tight end is. You can go on Keep Trade Cut, you can go on Fantasy Pros, scroll. You'll never find him because he's not even listed as a tight end on these sites. He's over as a quarterback. So that's how deep I've gone. I've even shifted positions to find you a deep tight end. But yeah, it's Taysom Hill, obviously, the guy that nobody really knows what he is. But to be honest, he could be a pretty good fantasy tight end. I know Kevin Alley spoke about him on last week's show, so I'm not going to go into too much detail because they covered it really well, what he did, showing up in the preseason and during the off-season. And we kind of know what we've got with Taysom Hill. We've seen it in years gone by. He's kind of one of those tight ends where if you play him, he's probably going to do nothing for you. If you bench him, he's going to end up being the tight end 1 on the week because he's going to throw the ball, he's going to catch the ball, he's going to run the ball. Who knows what he's going to do? He's going to do everything. But when it comes to the tight end position, as we know, because it is such a dirty position, when you get below the top guys, it is just an absolute mess, isn't it, when it comes to tight ends? And as we mentioned, the one thing you want is volume. And with Taysom Hill, it doesn't have to be receiving volume. This guy can run the ball. And I think the way that things are shaping up at the minute with the Saints, Alvin Kamara, we don't really know the situation when it comes to his contract. We're going to assume that that's going to get sorted and he'll be the starter. But he's currently a bit all over the place. Don't really know what's happening with Kamara. Kendra Miller can't stay healthy. He's on IR. He's going to miss the first 4 weeks. And then Jamal Williams, who showed very little last year. So if we're going to talk about Taysom Hill and being running the ball, I think he could have a really good opportunity when it comes to running the ball this year. They've spoke about how they're going to use him plenty around the goal line. As I say, because he's so versatile, he can be used as a tight end, a wide receiver, a running back. And if we're looking at tight ends, I mean, that's where you're going to get your points. If you can get a touchdown, you're probably going to be a tight end 1 in fantasy for that week because it is such a mess at the bottom end at tight end. So for me, I think he's a great tight end to go out and target. Yeah, you're going to have to take the rough with this move. There's going to be weeks where, as I say, he's going to let you down when he's in your starting lineup. But if you can grin and bear it, or if you play best ball, he's the ideal tight end to get. But even if not, I think he's a guy that hopefully, if he is used a little bit more, he can get a little bit more consistency to his game. And he's a guy that you're going to love having as your tight end 2 in fantasy football when you need him to put in your tight end spot. I think, yeah, he's a great player to go out and get. I'd love to give you what his current value is, but I honestly don't know where he's going in terms of tight ends. But I'd assume it's somewhere around, I don't know, low 20s maybe, would you think, in terms of tight end? But yeah, I think he could easily do that. I think over the last few years, I think, what did you mention last week? I think you said he was a low-end tight end 1, weren't he, a couple of years ago? Yeah. So if you can get that.
last year.
Yeah, so again, see, tight end 15, you're getting him way below that kind of value. And if he does get this opportunity that we keep hearing this offseason that he's going to be getting, yeah, I think he's again another really great player to go out and get and be a tight end 2.
I think Taysom Hill's had more shout outs across the various shows.
Crazy.
like in the past few weeks, he got a mention on the Rewind show as well recently. Like, it's wild to think because this is a new offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak, and honestly, there's like so many different pathways this could go. Like, tell a story the Saints are challenging for the playoffs, which it's unlikely, but NFC sounds crap. Let's say Derek Carr gets injured, they're not going to be going to. They're not going to be going to Jake Hayner or Spencer Rattler. Surely not. Surely it's going to be Taysom Hill, the guy who he played QB, started for 3 or 4 games a few years back towards the end of the season. Did all right for fantasy, actually. You've got the running back scenario. So start of season, Kendrick Miller's out. Taysom Hill's going to get touches there. What if they trade Kamara mid-season? I can't see anybody trading for Taysom Hill, so he's going to be stuck on the Saints. Could he have a big role there, potentially? Tight end, if he wants that role, he's got it. Wide receiver behind the Larvae, it's a lot's up in the air. So there's so many different outcomes where he's listed as a tight end, but he doesn't have to get the traditional tight end touches, if you know what I mean. If he ends up being like absolutely wild outcome that he's playing QB, he's guaranteed like every week to be at least top 7 or 8 tight end, just as a floor play at QB. So, yeah, I'm not that brave person that'll play him as my tight end one in any lineup league, because I think you have to have a little bit of a knock to the head to want to do that and not want to upgrade the position. But I think where it gets interesting is definitely best ball, Dynasty best ball leagues. And also it comes into play in your tight end premium or your double tight end type leagues.
You know what I can't wait to do certain weeks? Just go and caution to the wind and hitting this lovely new auto sub button and just plug it into Taysom Hill. If something goes wrong, break the glass, put in Taysom Hill. Like that is definitely something I'm gonna be doing in several leagues. But you know what? If this guy's injured, I'm gonna need a miracle. So let's get into Taysom Hill. And shout out to the new offensive coordinator at the CNC. Obviously was an avid listener of the Wildcard Rewind whenever we first started the show, because every week me, Paul and Hannah would watch the games and would all be going, why don't they just play him a running back? Like, they just want him to run the ball, just give him the ball and let him run with it. So we might finally get to see that. I cannot wait to see what they do with Taysom Hill, the king of the auto subs for sure. And guys, I got bad news. That's the end of the show. I'm absolutely gutted to get to the end of this. It's been an absolutely unbelievable episode 200. Before I pass it on to you two, just want to say it's been amazing being a part of this. Started off as a fan, listening to the show every week, and to be able to be invited onto the Wildcard Rewind, now to be invited onto the Dynasty show as well. It has been an unbelievable experience. Feel so lucky to do that, and now can chat to you boys every single week. It is amazing. So, Kev, I'll pitch it to you first for any final thoughts on episode 200.
Look, it's been an amazing show. Hopefully, Matt's made some good picks. No pressure on us if you don't win any titles. No, just kidding. But yeah, it's been a great show. We couldn't pick a better person to come on for episode 200. Genuinely mean that. I know I do rib him now and then, but great guy, really smart dude. You remember this show last year? It wasn't Matt that was a guest, but I did call out Puka Nakua and that famous quote. So I've tried to be a little bit better this evening. As you'll notice, I've agreed with a lot of what Matt said, but it's not just so I don't get cut up this year. It's because he's genuinely made some. Jordan's made some amazing picks. So yeah, just thanks for coming on, Matt. It's been a great show, and I'm not going to say here's to the next 200 because 4 years that's a big window, but here's to the next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And Matt, any last words on the show? Must be great being back on here again, right?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for having me on. Obviously, it's been great to have been a part of it from the beginning. And as I say, with you guys, what you've been able to do, keep it going, keep the energy, keep everything just yeah, it means a lot to me, this show, because as we mentioned, I was kind of part of the start of it, and just seeing what it's become now and what we made it when we did it and what it's still carried on being is always great. I always listen to it every week because it's been a big part of my life, to be honest. And I know that sounds pretty corny, it's only fantasy football, but yeah, it's done a lot for me in terms of both my personal life as well, and obviously for fantasy and being able to help other people. It's been really good. So I just want to say thank you for having me on. It does mean a lot to be on for such a momentous show.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you everybody for listening as well. And if you don't want to miss another episode, or you don't want to miss any of the next 200, make sure you're following us over at Wildcard Dynasty Show over on X, and of course the main channel over at Fantasy Wildcard as well. We're on YouTube, we're on X, we're in all those things. So make sure you're following us, and we'll see you next week for episode 201. My goodness me. See you later. Bye.
When you have the wild card, you have the power to change the game.